Hi, this is Kevin, and in this video, I will tackle about the good life. This video will introduce the concepts from Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics and examines issues in contemporary science and technology using the same philosophical lens, and it will also tackles the important Aristotelian concepts of eudaimonia and arete, and how this can be used to assess one's relationship and dealings with science and technology. And later on, this topic will also aim to answer the questions, are we living the good life? Okay, so let's start. The topics that we will be discussing in this video is about the Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics and the Good Life. We will also discuss the eudaimonia, the ultimate good. The third is eudaimonia, uniquely human. Fourth, arete and human happiness. And the last one will be answer the question, what is the good life? Okay. So now I will ask you, are we living the good life? So for you, are we living the good life? So we know that this question is inarguably one universal human concern, and lahat tayo ay gusto magkaroon ng good life. But it varies from person to person. It depends on what constitutes a happy and contented life. Okay, so unique backgrounds, experiences, social context, and even preferences make it difficult to subscribe to a unified standard on which to tease out the meaning of the good life. Thus, the prospect of a standard of the good life, one that resonates across unique human experiences, is inviting. So when we say inviting, it is offering the promise of an attractive or enjoyable experience. Okay. So now, if to answer the question, are we living the good life? So necessarily, a reflection must be made on two things. So what are those things? So first, what standard could be used to define the good life? Second, how can the standard serve as a guide toward living the good life in the midst of scientific progress and technological advancement? Okay. So one such ethical basis is Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. So we know that Aristotle, he was born in 384 to 322 BC, is probably the most important ancient Greek philosopher and scientist. So he was a student of Plato, who was a student of Socrates, and together they were considered the big three of Greek philosophy. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So now we will be focused on Aristotle. Okay. So Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is the fundamental basis of Aristotelian ethics. Consists of 10 books. So originally, itong Aristotle Nicomachean Ethics is lecture notes siya na nakasulat sa mga scrolls na tinuturo sa mga lyceum that time. And it is widely believed that the lecture notes were compiled by or were dedicated to one Aristotle's sons, Nicomachus, and alternatively, it is believed that the work was dedicated to Aristotle's father, who was of the same name. Okay, so the Nicomachean Ethics, abbreviated as NE or sometimes EN, based on the Latin version of the name, is a treatise on the nature of moral life and human happiness based on the unique essence of human nature. So the NE is particularly useful in defining what the good life is. So we know that every one of us has a definition of what good is. So for example, is for us, mabuti na makatapos tayo ng ating college degree or makapag-travel around the world. Okay? So yung iba naman, for them, a good life is kapag successful ka sa isang business, sa business mo, or you are pursuing a healthy and active lifestyle. And another for the parents, okay? So for them, good life is kapag responsible parent ka, nabibigay mo yung needs ng mga anak mo or ng family mo. So for them, you are having a good life. However, although everyone aims to achieve that which is good, so Aristotle posited two types of good. So sa NE Book 2, Chapter 2, Aristotle explained that every action aims at some good. However, some actions aim at an instrumental good while some aim at an intrinsic good. So later we will explain this. And also he made it clear that the ultimate good is better than the instrumental good, for the latter is good as a means to achieving something else or some other end, while the former is good in itself. So what is then the ultimate good? Okay, so, based on the contrast between two types of good, one could reflect on some potential candidates for the ultimate good. So, do you think ultimate good is pleasure? So, someone might think that pleasure is the ultimate good. So, one aims for pleasure in the food they eat or in the experiences they immerse themselves into. So, yet, while pleasure is an important human need, it cannot be the ultimate good. Why? First, it is transitory. It passes. So, one may have been pleased with the food they had for lunch, but he or she will be hungry again or will want something else after a while. Second, pleasure does not encompass all aspects of life. So one may be pleased with an opportunity to travel, but that may not make him or her feel good about living. Okay? So what is it then? So do you think it is wealth that we will achieve the ultimate good? So let me tell you this, that a critic of wealth would prove otherwise. Indeed, many, if not most, aim to be financially stable, to be rich, or to be able to afford a luxury life. However, it is very common to hear people say that they aim to be wealthy, insofar as it would help them achieve some other goals. Elsewhere, it is also common to hear stories about people who have become very wealthy but remain by and large unhappy with the lives they lead. In this sense, wealth is just an intermediate good that is only instrumental. So it is not the ultimate good because it is not self-sufficient and does not stop one from aiming for some other greater good. Okay, so we have this another candidate for ultimate good. So do you think we can achieve ultimate good by fame and honor? So 'di ba sa ano natin ngayon, lalo na sa panahon ngayon natin, so many people today seem to be motivated by a desire to be known, to be famous. So yung iba talaga nag-i-strive sila for honor and recognition. And this is reflected by those people who use social media to acquire large virtual following on the internet and wish to gain a foothold on the benefits that fame brings. So many people, they act according to how they think they will be admired and appreciated by other people. However, this cannot constitute the ultimate good. Why? Because they are based on the perception of others. So fame and honor can never be good in themselves. If one's definition of the good life is being popular or respected, then the good life becomes elusive since it is based on the subjective views of others. Okay? So unlike pleasure, wealth, fame, and honor, we have this, we can say that it is the ultimate good. So what it is? It is the happiness. Okay? So eudaimonia, the ultimate good, happiness is the ultimate good. So do not be confused in eudaimonia and ultimate good, because in ancient Greeks, among the Greeks, the ultimate good is known as eudaimonia, from the word eu meaning good and daimon, um, daimon meaning spirit. So that is eudaimonia, means happiness or welfare. And also, Aristotle proposed two hallmarks of eudaimonia, namely virtue and excellence. Thus, happiness in the sense of eudaimonia has to be distinguished from merely living good. Eudaimonia transcends all aspects of life, for it is about living well and doing well in whatever one does. Okay? So, eudaimonia or happiness is unique to humans, for it is a uniquely human function. It is achieved only through a rational, directed life. Okay, so we have this Aristotle's notion of tripartite soul. Okay, so this one. It's summarized in Table 1. It illustrates a nested hierarchy of the functions and activities of the soul. Okay, so the degrees and functions of the soul are nested, such that one which has a higher degree of soul has all of the lower degrees. Thus, on the nutritive degrees, all living things, for example, plants, animals, and humans, require nourishment and have the ability to reproduce. So on the sensitive degree, only animals and humans have the ability to move and perceive. And finally, on the rational degree, only humans are capable of theoretical and practical functions. So following these, humans possess the nutritive, sensitive, and rational degrees of the soul. So more importantly, only humans are capable of a life guided by reason. Because this is so, happiness, too, is a uniquely human function for it can only be achieved through a rational, directed life. Now, let's talk about arete and human happiness. Okay, so arete, a Greek term, is defined as excellence of any kind and can also mean moral virtue, in which a virtue is what makes one function well. So Aristotle suggested two types of virtue, so that is intellectual virtue and moral virtue. So now we are done and identifying what eudaimonia is. So it is defines the good life, and to live a good life is also to live a happy life. Okay, so for only Aristotle, eudaimonia is only possible by living a life of virtue. Okay, the two kinds of virtue for Aristotle are intellectual virtue and moral virtue. So, in intellectual virtue or virtue of thought is achieved through education, time, and experience. So, we have these key intellectual virtues are wisdom, which guides ethical behavior, and understanding, which is gained from scientific endeavors and contemplation. Intellectual virtues are acquired through self-taught knowledge and skills as much as those knowledge and skills taught and learned in formal institutions. So we have this moral virtue or virtue of character is achieved through habitual practice. So some key moral but intellectual virtue and moral virtue should be in accordance with reason to achieve eudaimonia. Virtues are generosity, temperance, and courage. So, Aristotle explained that although the capacity for intellectual virtue is innate, it is brought into completion only by practice. It is by repeatedly being unselfish that one develops the virtue of generosity. It is by repeatedly resisting and foregoing every inviting opportunity that one develops the virtue of temperance. It is by repeatedly exhibiting the proper action and emotional response in the face of danger that one develops the virtue of courage. By and large, moral virtue is like a skill. A skill is acquired only through repeated practice. So, ang ibig sabihin ni Aristotle dito, for example, ikaw, alam mo na yung pagkain ng mga fatty foods ay nakakasama sa health, it is important that you have to make a habit to stay away from this type of food because health contributes to living well and doing well, right? So another one, for example, you believe that too much use of social media is detrimental to human relationships and productivity. So you must regulate yung paggamit ng social media, and you have to spend more time, syempre, sa mga kaibigan mo at sa family mo kesa dito sa mga virtual platform na ito. So another one is if you understand the enormous damage to the environment that plastic materials bring, you can use or recyclable materials. Okay? So pwede mo iwasan yung mga plastic or yung mga bagay na nakakasira sa kapaligiran kasi alam mo na hindi yun makakabuti. Okay? So good relationship dynamics and a healthy environment contribute to one's wellness in how he or she lives and what he or she does. Okay? So both intellectual virtue and moral virtue should be in accordance with reason to achieve eudaimonia. A virtue can be ruined by any excess and deficiency in how one lives and acts. So a balance between two extremes is a requisite of virtue. So this balance is a mean of excess, not in the sense of geometric or arithmetic average. Instead, it is a mean relative to the person, circumstances, and the right emotional response in every experience. Okay, so let us consider the virtue of courage. So we have defined earlier that courage as displaying the right action and emotional response in the face of danger. Okay, so the virtue of courage is ruined by an excess of the needed emotional and proper action to address a particular situation. Okay, so a person, for example, who does not properly assess the danger and is totally without fear may develop the vice of foolhardiness or rashness. Also, courage is ruined by a deficiency of the needed emotion and proper action. So, when one overthinks of a looming danger, that he or she becomes too fearful and incapable of acting on the problem, he or she develops the vice of cowardice. So that's it. Okay. So what then is the good life? So the good life in the sense of eudaimonia is the state of being happy, healthy, and prosperous in the way one thinks, lives, and acts. Okay. The path to the good life consists of the virtues of thought and character. And yung thought and character na yun ay mediator between the two extremes of excess and deficiency. So, alam naman natin na kapag sobra, masama. And kapag kulang, masama din. Okay? So, in this way, the good life is understood as happiness brought about by living a virtuous life. Right? So, kailangan natin maging balance. Kailangan natin mag-draw ng parallels between moving toward the good life and moving toward further progress and development in science and technology. Okay? So, in appraising the goodness of the next medical procedure, the new social media trend or the latest mobile device or the upcoming technology for food and safety, one must be guided by Aristotelian virtues. Science and technology can be ruined by under or over appreciation of the scope and function. So it plays in the pursuit of the uniquely human experience of happiness. Okay, but refusing science and technology altogether to improve human life as problematic as allowing it to entirely dictate reason and action without any regard of ethical and moral standards. So by imposing on science and technology an ethical standard that is not dictated by itself, as C.S. Lewis proposed, not only will scientific advancement and technological development flourish, but also human person. So before I end this discussion, let Okay. So before I end this discussion, Aristotle once said that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit.